Hi, I'm Sahana.
I'm Meghna, and this is Shankari, our co
co-host
host and co producer. Today we're going to be talking about the book The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. Do you want to give a quick summary of this book before we get into it?
All right, so the book follows the journey of this unnamed narrator who lives on this island, which is policed by this force called the Memory Police. And the Memory Police will, at regular intervals, take away people's memories of their everyday objects, like roses or birds or just anything you interact with in everyday life. And most people will forget everything, but some people are able to hold on to their memories. An example of a person like this is the narrator's mother, who tried to introduce the narrator to different types of memories but was unable to. The story follows her journey as she, along with her friend, this old man, try to hide her editor, who's another one of these people who can keep their memories in their heads inside of her house because otherwise the memory police will take him away. It's a very poignant and emotional story, and definitely one I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so one of the first things that we were going to talk about when we were talking about this book was the theme of like authority and government and how they dealt with the people. And one of like the main things we were going to talk about was how the government kind of like convinces these people to perform tasks that they don't really want to do, yet the people do it in a way that's like almost trusting. In fact, the narrator is an author and she is writing a story as the entire story goes on, and that story that she's writing kind of parallels the situation that she's in. And this story is about essentially this young girl who is kind of in love with her teacher, who is a typing teacher, and it follows like their relationship. But one day the girl loses her voice. It turns out as we go further in the story that the her voice wasn't lost. Her teacher actually intentionally took her voice from her, and in the name of curing it, he locks her up in a room where she can see that he's taking the voices of so many other young women. And essentially he just lets her wither away. He doesn't like purposely try to kill her, even he just lets her wither away out of pure negligence and this kind of abuse. And that kind of, when I was reading that story the narrator was writing, I could see how like that kind of related to the government, that the memory police were like kind of enforcing, in that like these people at first they were trusting the government. They were like, oh, forgetting things will probably be something good for us, it'll probably be useful. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like forgetting things just to like maintain this power structure, and that you're just like, it's just like a passing thing for the government. It's not really something they really care about at all. And they kind of like erase this person's identity, take away the people's voices until they're left like withered away, like kind of like these fragments of themselves.
Yeah. And like it's so difficult for them to like find freedom from the struggle just because they can't even remember enough to be angry
Exactly.
and find freedom. The only people who remember are like the different people who are like the narrator's mother and her editor are. And he constantly throughout the book, he tries to show her different objects in order to help her rebel against the authority because he wants her to remember things as well. So he'll show her like perfume or like a music box or the things her mother hid away for her. But when she sees these things, she can't even remember what they are. She doesn't even feel any attachment to them whatsoever because of how deeply she's been gutted out. It's genuinely so sad to watch. The only time they get real freedom is at the end of the book when they get to the point where they're like losing memory of the different parts of their body. They're literally becoming like specimens of nothingness. And then the editor R realizes that the memory police is probably as immobilized as they are, so he's able to get up and leave. But because she's been so like struck down by power, she can do nothing because she is a nothing.
Exactly. She basically like forgets all of her body parts. And near the end of the story, like the R is kind of like pleading with her, like begging her, like, hey, like you need to remember your body parts. You can walk away, you can run away from this. And it kind of makes you wonder if like she still has her body, yet she's unable to like remember how like any of the parts actually function. Which is why like even though she's like there as a whole, she can't even move. Like it's like her body is a prison, which makes it even more sad because she has all the facilities to get up and live a normal life. Yet her mind is stopping her because she has been so trained and controlled to forget everything, and she just dissolves into this nothingness as R can do nothing but watch.
Yeah, and that brings us to the second facet of the story, which is identity. How do our memories influence our identity, and how much of our identity is made up of our memories? Because the main character, her identity is mostly things that she's recalled from experience or things that she's able to think about based on things from experience, especially since she's a novelist and that's what she bases her entire career off of. But when novels are erased, she's unable to even write anymore. Because we form our identities off of the objects in our everyday life. If all of those objects were gone, what would you even be?
Exactly. Like, I think we don't realize the importance that we give to objects, like you pointed out.
Mhm.
Like certain photos, certain pens, even
Mhm.
certain like these minute things that other people may think are just throwaway items can hold like a lot of value to you.
Mhm.
So that when you lose them, it may seem like kind of arbitrary, but you end up like maybe even forgetting like the experience or like the fond memory related to that object.
Mhm.
So I feel like this book really highlighted how like objects are inherently tied into memories and how memories are how we form our sense of identity.
Mhm.
And without memory, we kind of become like this kind of like standardized version of like a human, where it's kind of like this blank canvas, but there's nothing to paint on there because all the paints have gone missing.
Yeah. And then, like, on top of that, it's not just the objects, of course, it's also the people around her who she forms her identity off of. Particularly, there's this old man who helps her throughout the book. He helps her build a hiding place for R. He supports her in hiding him, and he constantly talks to her. He constantly checks up on her. He's one of the biggest buyers of her novels on this desolate island where most people aren't interested in literature or reading. And he's such a big support in her life. So when he ends up dying due to an avalanche caused by a certain memory being erased, then she's like completely lost without him. She doesn't have a guide. Her only guide is R because she's able to still talk to him. But when she loses her ability to even speak, like where is she supposed to like connect herself to? All she knows is that she's fading away, but she doesn't even know what parts of her are fading away. It's
Literally, oh my
genuinely
gosh.
so sad to watch. Like it's such a like heartbreaking novel because you're hoping that at some point she'll like somehow like have a revelation and be able to like remember things again, but that never happens. She just keeps
Exactly.
forgetting.
You never realize like how much you value like your sense organs until like you read this book, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because like especially the way you said it, like
Mm-hmm.
I 100% agree with that. It's written in such a way that it kind of like instead of just like a quick release, it's kind of like it's like a knife in your heart and then you just like twist it. It's like very very heartbreaking, a slow passing of just a woman who's like losing everything she's ever known. Forget everything she's ever loved, literally everything she's ever known.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like it's like instead of like losing like stuff that's important, it's like she never even got the chance to realize that this was important to her
Mm-hmm.
because like she was just unable to remember it. Like and everyone around her as well. You kind of like I feel so bad for like R in the story because imagine like being able to remember everything yet the people around you are like constantly forgetting and you're trying to remind them and yet there's just nothing there. Like they just physically cannot. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's so frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And also like it's heartbreaking breaking for you too because you realize like everyone eventually is going to forget. Like my wife, my kids,
Mm-hmm.
my husband, like whatever. They're all gonna forget. What if they forget me? Like
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yeah, and it's just like it's like a slow. It's that's the point of the novel, right? It's like this slow descent to forgetting everything. You think you're forgetting arbitrary things. If you forget like a breakfast item, or if you forget like a certain food or a certain action, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But all of these, tying back to the initial point about identity, all of these things make up our identity. All of these small little things are just building blocks into who we really are. So this book really just does a brilliant job of conveying the effect of objects and people and the things around us in building us up into who we are. We are a collection of our past experiences, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants. So this book just does a brilliant job of portraying that, and it's definitely one that left me very chilled and like heartbroken because I was just thinking about it for days afterward. So I would
Literally.
highly recommend giving this book a read. It's definitely has some like brilliant themes, some brilliant writing. It's not a difficult read at all. So highly recommend, and thank you so much for watching.
Yep. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.